Well, here we are. It's 12 o'clock, and welcome to Word for the Day. For those of you that don't know me, my name's Terry Whitaker. I'm a licensed lay worker, licensed to the Diocese of Rochester. I lead a church called Reach at Gillingham Pier, which, not surprisingly, is at Gillingham Pier. And my family and I are very much part of the family of St Margaret's, and it's very good to be with you now. Today I'm going to think a little about time. Time's something which over the period of the last few weeks appears to be more flexible than it has been in my memory. And I was challenged as to why that is. Why does time sometimes appear to go so quickly and other times appear to drag or just pass slowly? Let me give you 3 examples from my life, just to try and illustrate that. So our family experience of lockdown was that in the early stages, in the first week or so, I was busy. I was running around buying food for people that were already self-isolating, doing pharmacy runs for those self-isolating, and generally trying to be helpful. And that was good and kind of normal. I'm the sort of person that's a doer rather than a beer. Well, at least I think I am. Then our daughter Charlie, who works over at the Medway as an occupational therapist, got exposed to some undiagnosed virus sufferers who sadly subsequently died. And she developed a cough while she was at work. They sent her home as a precaution, so she stayed home for a week. It didn't develop, but as a consequence, we as a family had to stay home for 2 weeks in proper isolation. Many of you will be aware what that feels like, but for me, those first few days were odd. Time passed extraordinarily slowly, as where I was used to buzzing around, running here and there. I was obliged to be still. That's obviously the isolation has passed, and but we've not returned back to where we were before. We're endeavouring to help, but yeah, we're not back there yet. The second illustration is quite a chronic one, really, and tragic in our case, in that my father about 2 weeks ago, no, a week and a half ago, was put under a palliative care regime. He's obviously very poorly. He's 200 miles away. He lives with my mum, who has Alzheimer's, and trying to get to terms with that and having those conversations over the phone, which were appalling but wonderful in equal measure, has been difficult. But it's interesting because I can, I've spent time reflecting back on time with Dad. And I've got memories in my mind of my childhood, of fishing with my dad and water skiing and meals and holidays, which were 40, 50 years ago. But they're as fresh as if they happened yesterday. And time seems to have shrunk just into something which is really sort of tangible. And yet, if you think about something 40, 50 years hence, well, it's just hard to imagine. The third illustration is one of which I suspect we've all encountered, which is if you've ever been on a 2-week holiday, why is it in the first week that time passes really well and slowly and every day feels rich? But in the second week, the holiday seems to race past. That unwelcome pack your case and go back home at the end of it just seems to loom large and then accelerate towards you as you get through the course of that second week. So time has this ability within our heads, I guess, to flex. Now, as Christians, we're kind of expected to have a different perspective of time. We can trace our roots back to Adam and Eve from the very beginning of time. So we have that lineage there, if you like. We live in the present, but we live in the knowledge that we live for eternity, that this life that we live now is kind of a foretaste of something better, which is the promise to us. And if we've got that perspective that our life goes on eternally, then should we not just be focused on the here and now? Because there's always a tomorrow. And it struck me, I guess, that focus probably is at the heart of how time moves fast or slow. So using the holiday illustration, when we focus in that second week, even if we don't intend to, we focus on the fact that we're going home. You know, we've got less holiday to go than we've had already. And even that thought in our mind accelerates time, because part of our focus isn't in the now, it's in the tomorrow. It's in the thing to come, that thing looming large. With Dad and his situation, it just seems that the days are moving so fast for him, which feels cruel. Because I guess part of my focus is, well, what happens when his end comes? And what then needs to happen? Part of my now focus is then. And so time seems to be accelerating towards that. Now, this should come as no surprise, I guess, if you look at the Bible. The Bible has got many things in there about time. There's a passage, the well-known passage in Ecclesiastes, which I'm going to read to you. It's very short, and as I say, many of you will know it, but it's probably worth the hearing. For everything there is a season, and a time for every matter under heaven. A time to be born and a time to die. A time to plant and a time to pluck up what is planted. A time to kill and a time to heal. A time to break down and a time to build up. A time to weep and a time to laugh. A time to mourn and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and it's now a time to refrain from embracing. A time to seek and a time to lose. A time to keep and a time to cast away. A time to tear and a time to sow. A time to keep silence and a time to speak. A time to love and a time to hate. A time for war and a time for peace. Now, the scholars argue about who wrote that. It was written somewhere between 200 and 600 BC, so 2,500 years ago or so. But the reality is that in our life, there will be all those things. But what is it we strive for? What is it we focus on? There lies our challenge, I guess. And if you look at that passage in Matthew 6:34, where we're simply told, don't worry about tomorrow, because tomorrow's worries won't go away if you worry them. Just focus on the day. I think it raises a challenge for each one of us. Do we honor the people around us, those that we're in touch with, those that we're intimate with? I include digital intimate into that. Do we honor them by constantly striving and focusing on the future? Or do we miss an opportunity to make the very most of the present? I think that passage from Ecclesiastes says, look, don't strive for those things, because in your life, they'll all come. But relish the day. Relish today. Can we live as people that quite rightly think of the future and plan? But then once that plan's in place, refocus on the now. I suspect my wife's sitting downstairs watching this and laughing with a rueful grin. She's always said to me that I'm somebody that overthinks, and I often find myself absorbed in strategy, planning a future, or just thinking why and what next. And perhaps I've just missed an opportunity to be now. And for that, I'm sad. So a question for today, a thought for today. Is our balance right? Do we focus enough on the now? Do we honour those that are around us and give them our very best? In faith, we have an eternity. There is no running out of time. Let's give all that we can to the moment. Tomorrow, I'll be back with you. I'm going to think a bit about joy and happiness. But for today, enjoy the rest of your day. Have a good day. Take care and stay safe. Join us back again this evening, or Nathan will be here at 8 o'clock for night prayers. And other than that, I'll be back here tomorrow. God bless.